Mara Ashford had rehearsed every argument. The opening offer was $4.2 million. Two lawyers waited in the car. A 5-minute pitch sat memorized behind her teeth. She crossed the threshold of the Birchwood house at Lake Ellery. A polite good afternoon was already shaping itself on her mouth. The greeting never came out. On the wall opposite the door, hung in a plain wooden frame, was the oil painting she had been searching for over 11 years. Lake Ellery in deep blue. A small boy fishing. In the lower right corner, a brushed signature in a child's scrawl. Eli, A. Summer 2013. Mara sank to her knees in the living room of a stranger and broke. 3 weeks earlier, on the 22nd floor of the Ashford Health Foundation in Charlotte, Mara stood at the head of a polished walnut table and walked her board through the same project for the 7th quarter in a row. The Eli Ashford Children's Mental Health Center. 80 beds, 6 years of planning, 3 of waiting. The site map was already on the screen behind her. 4 parcels on the western shore of Lake Ellery, North Carolina. Quiet water, old-growth pines, a landscape every clinical paper she had read said was the right place to put broken children back together. 3 parcels signed, her assistant Priya said from the side of the room. Kane is still no. Read it back. Priya read flatly. 14 months, 7 offers, 1.8 million to 4.2. Every refusal a single line. The land is not for sale. Respectfully, S. Kane. That is the entire letter. Ma'am, Mara did not sit. She had not sat through a board update in 9 years. I'll go see him. Ma'am, our counsel advised, I'll go see him. That settled it. 220 miles west. In the same hour, Silas Kane was already on his 2nd cup of coffee. 5 in the morning at Lake Ellery looked like dark blue ink poured over a sheet of glass. He walked out to the boat shed his father had built in 1971, switched on the lamps, and ran a thumb along the curved rib of a half-finished canoe. His daughter, Wren, 9 years old, was asleep upstairs in the cedar house, sketchbook tucked under her cheek the way other children held stuffed animals. His mother, Odessa, had been gone 2 years now. The last thing she ever said about this property was simple. This house doesn't sell, son, not for gold. At 7, he walked down to the mailbox at the gate. Inside was a single town hall envelope, property tax reassessment, 340%, signed Dale Kirkland, Mayor. Silas stood there in the cool air for a full 30 seconds before he folded the paper and walked back up the gravel. At noon, he met Odette Marsh at the only coffee shop in town. She was 71, narrow-shouldered, kind-eyed. She took the tax letter out of the envelope and read it twice. Silas, I don't want to say this, but if this isn't paid in 60 days, the county takes the land. You need to think hard about the offer again. You know why I won't sell. She was quiet a long moment. I do, but Lucia would want Wren to have a roof, even if it isn't this one. He did not answer. That night, Wren drew at the kitchen table while he peeled apples. She paused her pencil and looked up. Daddy, the painting in the living room, was that your friend a long time ago? A friend from summer camp? A long time ago. He was really good. Yes, he was very good. She did not ask anything else. In Charlotte at 9 p.m. that night, Mara sat alone in her office. On her desk was a photograph of Eli at 17. She turned it face down. It was the gesture she had made for 11 years before any hard decision. I'll get this parcel, Eli, for you, she said into the empty room. Thursday morning, the black Range Rover came up the gravel drive at Lake Ellery and stopped in front of a wooden gate. Mara stepped out alone. Stay in the car, she told her lawyers. I go in first. Silas opened the door before she knocked. Gray-blue flannel, a streak of linseed oil along the back of one hand. He was not surprised. Priya had sent a courteous letter ahead. He did not invite her inside. Mrs. Ashford, Miss Ashford, you came a long way to waste her afternoon, Mr. Kane. And I don't waste afternoons. 10 minutes, Miss Ashford. He looked at her a long time, then he stepped aside. 10. She walked in. She had prepared for everything except this room. The ceiling pitched at an angle she had only ever seen in good concert halls. The north windows pulled in soft, even painter's light. The stair treads were spaced unevenly on purpose, narrower at the bottom, where an older knee would prefer them. The banister was sanded so smooth it looked like the polished shoulder of a bone. This was not the home of a man who built boats. She stopped on the rug. The recognition arrived at once. She had stood under exactly these proportions in 2018 at a fundraiser inside Boston Children's Cancer Wing. You designed Boston Children's Cancer Wing. It was not a question. Silas froze for half a second. You have the wrong man.
He neither confirmed nor denied. You came to talk about the land, ma'am, not about me. 9 minutes left. She let it go and took the armchair. She started her pitch. 80 beds, Western Shore, trees and water, community jobs. Priya had drafted 3 variations. Mara used the warmest one when she said the name, Eli Ashford. Silas tilted his head slightly. Your brother. 11 years ago. 17. He was quiet a long time. I'm sorry. Mara, who had heard that line from thousands of mouths, did not answer. Footsteps came down the stairs. Daddy, I finished the loon. A small girl, 9 years old, sketchbook held against her chest. She saw Mara and stopped. Oh, sorry, ma'am. Mara produced the smile she used for donors. Wren studied her with the open, unhurried curiosity of a child who had been raised around quiet people. Would you like to see the loon, Wren? The lady is working, Silas said gently. Mara surprised herself. I'd like to see. Wren came down the rest of the stairs. She turned the sketchbook around, a loon on Lake Ellery in colored pencil. The line was confident, restrained. The water suggested rather than drawn. Mara's hand moved without permission. Her fingers brushed the edge of the page. She knew that line. She raised her eyes from the sketchbook. For the first time since entering the house, she looked across the room. Her gaze landed on the opposite wall. Mara stood up slowly. Her body did it before her mind decided. She crossed the rug in 2 steps. Silas did not understand yet. Wren stayed where she was on the bottom stair, sensing something heavy without being able to name it. The painting. Lake Ellery, in deep blue. A small boy fishing. Silas, as a child of 9 or 10. In the lower right corner, in a brushed scroll, the same hand as the loon in the sketchbook. Eli A. Summer 2013. Mara touched the frame. Her finger trembled against the wood. This is my brother's painting. Silas, standing now beside her, slowly turned and looked at the painting he had hung in this same room for 11 years. Eli Ashford, he said the name for the first time in his life, as a question. Eli was my brother. Her voice came apart in the middle. Eli gave this painting to someone at Lake Ellery Arts Camp the summer of 2013. I have been looking for it for 11 years. My mother burned almost everything of his after he... She did not finish that sentence. I couldn't save a single canvas. I wrote to every camper from that summer. No one remembered. No one knew. I stopped looking 5 years ago. Silas sat down on the armchair behind him. He did not look at her. He looked at the painting. I shared a cabin with Eli that summer. He was 17. I was 21, working as a counselor. He painted this in the last week. He said, "You keep it. You're the only one here who actually fishes." I hung it in my dorm at Yale. I hung it in my apartment in Boston. I hung it here. Mara went down, not gracefully. She knelt on the rug and folded forward and wept the way grief weeps when it has been postponed for 11 years. Silas froze. He had not seen a woman cry like that since Lucia's funeral. Wren moved first. She did not ask anything. She took the linen tea towel from the back of the chair and pressed it carefully into Mara's hand. Then she sat down on the floor about half a meter away, not touching, and waited. Silas finally lowered himself to the floor beside Mara. "I didn't know," he said. "I didn't know he was—" He couldn't finish either. Mara wiped her face with the towel. "Did he laugh that summer?" she asked. Silas thought a long time before answering. "He laughed a lot. He was good that summer. That's the part I couldn't make sense of when I heard." Mara put her hands over her face. Silas did not touch her shoulder. He put his palm down on the cedar floorboards near her, one hand's width away, and left it there. Outside, her phone vibrated in her coat pocket. After a long minute, she answered without looking at the screen. It was Priya. "Ma'am, 10 minutes is now 45. Are we all right?" Mara breathed out. "Cancel the rest of the trip. I'm staying at Lake Ellery tonight." At dusk, Silas led her down through the long grass to the dock behind the house. The lake at the end of October took on the same blue as the painting. Wren stayed inside warming soup, having been raised by quiet people to know that grown-ups sometimes need distance. They sat on the cedar planks of the dock, 1 meter between them, not touching. Silas spoke first. He told her about that summer. Eli, 17, sent up from Charlotte because his parents thought camp would be good for him. Eli did not talk much at first, but he painted every day. He liked listening to Silas talk about architecture school. One afternoon on this same dock, Eli had said quite simply, "I want to draw a hospital where kids aren't afraid." Mara went very still. "He said that? You didn't know? Eli never told our family what he wanted to be. He only painted in his room alone. He talked a lot at camp." The silence went long. A loon answered itself somewhere across the water. "My foundation is building a children's psychiatric hospital on this land. That was supposed to be the project Eli would have made. I didn't know he had already had
idea." She laughed a small, bitter laugh. "He has been living in your head for 11 years, while I thought I had lost him completely." Silas was quiet for a while. Then he said, "He didn't go anywhere, Mara. He is in this room every morning when I make coffee." She looked sideways. It was the first time he had used her name. He kept his eyes on the water. "I'm not going to sell this land to your foundation." Her stomach dropped before she could think. "I'm going to give it to you," he said, "all 4 acres for the Eli Ashford Center, on one condition." "What condition?" "Let me design it pro bono. I need to do this for him." She did not answer for a long time. She looked at the lake, at the woods, at the curve of the shoreline she would soon ask engineers to respect. She nodded. From the house, Wren's voice called down through the screen door, "Supper's ready." They walked back up the slope together. For the first time in 11 years, Mara sat down to a family meal at someone else's table. Friday morning at the Lake Ellery Town Hall, Dale Kirkland's assistant set a folded note on his desk and left without a word. The note said, "Range Rover at the Kane House overnight, still there at 7. Kirkland read it twice, then he picked up the phone. "Trent, we have a problem." On the other end, Trent Ashworth of Ashworth Resorts said only, "Stop it by any means." Kirkland called an emergency town council session for that afternoon. He arrived with a folder he had been holding for 2 years. The land along the western shore, his report said, was zoned residential. A commercial health care facility would require a minimum 18-month review. The council, half of them his appointees, nodded. In the same hour, he signed a separate document, building permit denial, Kane boat shed, unsafe structure, 30 days to demolish. By noon, the news reached Silas by way of a county inspector who had the decency to look ashamed. Silas read the demolition order standing in the doorway of the shed his father had built in 1971. He said nothing. He folded the paper and put it in his back pocket. He went outside, sat on the step, and looked at the lake. Wren came out a minute later and sat down beside him. She did not ask. She put her head against his shoulder. "Daddy, is Miss Mara staying?" "I don't know, sweetheart. I like her." "I know." In the only coffee shop in town, Mara was working through email on her laptop when an unusual activity at Lake Ellery Town Hall came through from Priya. Unusual activity at Lake Ellery Town Hall. Kirkland has just blocked the zoning. Mara closed her laptop. She did not raise her voice. She called her general counsel and said, "Get on the road. Bring the team. I want everything we have on Dale Kirkland in 48 hours. Then she drove out to Silas's shed. She found him on the step with Wren. He stood up when she saw her car. He handed her the demolition order without a word. She read it. "Kirkland has wanted this land for Ashworth Resorts for 2 years. I have been the only thing in the way. Now he is afraid we're going to win the zoning, so he is going to break the shed instead, bankrupt me before the project clears. Do you want me to handle this?" He looked at her. "You are the foundation CEO. You can handle it. I need you to say yes or no, Silas." He looked at the lake a long time. Wren had gone quietly back inside. "Yes, but not for me, for Eli's center." Mara nodded. She walked back to her car, opened the door, dialed Priya, pushed the Kirkland file, everything, 48 hours, and scheduled a meeting with the Ashworth CEO. On Saturday morning, Odette Marsh came up the gravel drive without calling ahead. 71 years old, gray hair pinned at the nape, a battered cardboard box in her arms. "Silas, I heard in town. The Ashford woman is here, Eli's sister." He nodded. "Let me speak to her. I have kept this since 2013. Mara was called over from the inn where she had spent the night. The three of them sat at Silas's kitchen table. Odette set the box on the cedar planks. Inside was the camper file from Lake Ellery Arts Camp, summer 2013. A thick folder marked Eli Ashford, Cabin 7. Odette opened it carefully. 3 things came out. The first was Eli's intake form, filled out in his own handwriting. The line at the bottom read, "What do you hope to become?" Eli had written, "An architect who designs hospitals where children are not afraid." The second was a stack of 8 pencil sketches drawn on cheap camp paper, every one a draft of the same small lakeside hospital: curved corridors, wide windows, a painting room, a quiet room, a south-facing therapy garden. The third was a letter folded in 3, addressed to Mara. It had never been sent. "I tore up my old letter because I was afraid you wouldn't understand. I'll write again when I get home. I want to tell you my idea. I think I'll be okay if I have something to build." "Eli never went home to write it again," Odette said softly. "But he trusted you. You were the one he wanted to tell." Mara read the letter without crying. She read it twice. She put it down. Her face had gone very still. "Why did you keep this and not send it to me 11 years ago?"
I tried. In 2014, your family refused all packages with Eli's name. Your mother returned the whole box, marked unopened. I kept it. I waited. I believed someday there would be a reason. Mara looked at Silas. "Did you know Eli wanted to build hospitals?" "He told me. I thought it was a kid's dream. I didn't know he had drawn them." She picked up the 8 sketches. She fanned them across the table like cards. "Silas, I want you to design Eli's center, not from your ideas, from these, from his. Are you good enough to turn a 17-year-old sketches into a real building?" Silas looked at the drawings for a long time. He set down one, picked up another, held it against the light. "Good enough," he said. Odette left them with the box. The 2 of them sat at the kitchen table with the 8 sketches spread out between them. Wren wandered in, leaned over the table, and looked at the drawings carefully. "They're pretty. Who drew them, Daddy?"
Silas put a hand on the back of her head. A very good friend of mine and Miss Mara's brother. On Tuesday of the following week, the conference room on the top floor of the Ashford Foundation in Charlotte filled at exactly 2 p.m. Mara sat at the head of the table. To her right, 2 attorneys and Priya. To her left, Silas in a plain charcoal jacket, the first jacket he had put on in 3 years. He had not worn it to impress anyone. He had worn it because she had asked. Across from them, Trent Ashworth and Dale Kirkland. Mara did not greet them. She opened a folder. "I'll be short. My foundation just received a donation of 4 acres of western Lake Ellery shoreline from Mr. Kane. Effective Monday, we will build the Eli Ashford Children's Mental Health Center on that land. Mr. Kirkland, you blocked our zoning on a residential designation. We have just filed for state-level rezoning through the North Carolina Department of Health, bypassing town authority. That is a right healthcare foundations were granted in 2009. Our filing will clear in 6 weeks. You no longer have jurisdiction." Kirkland's color drained out of his face. "And," Mara said, opening the second half of the folder, "I have 3 wire transfers from Ashworth Resorts to a Kirkland Political Action Committee in 2024, totaling $312,000, undeclared. I have meeting logs showing Ashworth and Kirkland together 14 times in 18 months. I have an email from Kirkland to Ashworth reading, 'Kane will break in 6 months.' Mr. Ashworth, Mr. Kirkland, you have 24 hours. 1. Mr. Kirkland resigns from the mayor's office. 2. Ashworth Resorts withdraws from every Western Lake Ellery proposal for 10 years. Otherwise, this file goes to the North Carolina State Ethics Commission tomorrow at 9. Ashworth stood up. "Miss Ashford, there is no need to escalate." "You don't have the authority," Kirkland snapped. "I have $2.4 billion and a foundation," Mara said without heat. "I have all the authority I need. 20 seconds left." They left. The room went still. The attorneys closed their files quietly and slid out. Priya followed them. Silas and Mara were the only 2 left. Silas had not said a word the entire meeting. He turned toward her in his chair. "You're frightening." She did not smile. Eli deserved someone frightening to fight for him. He looked at her for a long time. "Lucia would have liked you." It was the first time he had said his wife's name in front of her. Mara understood the weight of it. She did not answer with words. She put her open hand on one of Eli's sketches that lay on the table between them. She did not touch his hand. She left her palm close enough that he could see. That night, in her penthouse in Charlotte, Odette's box she opened and set the 8 sketches out one more time. On the bookshelf behind her desk stood the photograph of Eli at 17. For the first time in 11 years, she set it upright, facing the room. 3 months later, in early October, the groundbreaking ceremony for the Eli Ashford Children's Mental Health Center took place under a clear, cold sky. Kirkland had resigned. The new mayor had signed the rezoning the day after taking office. Ashworth had withdrawn. Silas spent 6 weeks in Charlotte working with the engineering firm. Mara had given him a small office at the foundation, 2 doors down from her own. He drove back to Lake Ellery every weekend. Wren stayed with Lucia's mother in Asheville the weeks his father was gone. They had not gone on a date. They had not held hands. They had not said anything explicit. But every morning Silas was in Charlotte. He stopped at the coffee shop in the lobby downstairs, bought a black coffee, and left it on Mara's desk before she arrived. One Friday evening in late October, the first real autumn rain came down over the city. Mara worked late. When she came down to the lobby, Silas was standing by the revolving door with 2 folded rain shells in his hand. "Where are we going?" "Lake Ellery, for the weekend. Wren misses you." She had not planned to go. She went. They arrived at the Cedar house at 11 p.m. at night. Wren was asleep. Silas led Mara down the long grass to the dock, the same dock where they had sat in silence the first evening. On the cedar planks he had set out something covered in canvas cloth. He pulled the canvas off, a small architectural model in cedar wood. Eli Ashford Children's Mental Health Center, scale to 1 to 200. He had built it by hand over 6 weeks, late at night in the boat shed. Mara went down on her knees in front of it. She touched each tiny window with the tip of one finger. "When did you make this?" "At night. I don't sleep much." "Why cedar?"
Eli said something at camp, Silas said. He said, "I want to walk into a building that smells like real wood. Hospitals all smell like plastic." Mara set the model between them on the dock. For the first time, she put her hand over his on the cedar plank. 5 seconds, then she lifted it. The screen door at the house creaked open behind them. Wren appeared on the back porch in pajamas, sleep-warm, sketchbook under one arm. "Miss Mara, you came!" She ran down the grass and threw her arms around Mara's waist from behind. "I drew you this week. I'll show you tomorrow." Saturday morning came on slowly. They ate breakfast on the back porch. October had turned the maples on the far shore into gold. The lake lay perfectly still. Wren ate her pancakes, told a complicated story about a substitute teacher, then climbed off her chair and ran around to the side of the house to feed the chickens. Silas and Mara were left on the porch with coffee. Mara spoke first, softly. "I don't know what this is." "I don't either. I hadn't thought about meeting anyone after Eli. The foundation was all I had for 11 years. I hadn't thought about meeting anyone after Lucia. Wren was all I had for 3 years. The silence stretched. A small wind moved through the dry leaves at the edge of the porch. Silas was looking at the lake. Lucia died on Route 26. A truck lost its brakes on the descent. I was in Boston giving a presentation. I took the call standing at the lectern. I flew home. I didn't make it in time. Wren was 6. She was at my mother's that afternoon. I drank a swallow of coffee. Lucia would say, "Silas, don't make it hard for her. She is scared in the same way you are." Mara laughed quietly. It was a small sound, but it was a laugh. Eli would say, "Mara, breathe." They laughed together for the first time. Wren came around the corner with a feather stuck to her sleeve. "Daddy, Miss Mara, did you know one of the chickens laid a double yolk?" "I did know that's possible, sweetheart." "Miss Mara, are you staying till Sunday?" Mara looked at Silas. He did not say anything. He did not have to. "I'm staying," she said. 18 months later, in early May, the ribbon was cut on the Eli Ashford Children's Mental Health Center. The building rose long and low along the western shore. Cedar siding, pitched roof drawn from Eli's last sketch, wide windows facing the water, a curved central corridor, a south-facing therapy garden full of new lavender and rosemary still finding their roots. The whole place smelled like real wood. 300 guests sat in folding chairs on the lawn. Press from Raleigh and Asheville, the North Carolina Secretary of Health, Odette Marsh in the front row in the best linen blouse she owned. Mara walked up to the podium without notes. "Eli died when he was 17. For 11 years, I believed he had left nothing behind. I was wrong. He left 8 pencil sketches in a cardboard box at Lake Ellery. He left a painting on the wall of a stranger's house. And he left a sentence, 'I want to draw a hospital where kids aren't afraid.'" The room was very quiet. "This building belongs to Eli, not to me, not to the foundation, to Eli, and to the man who kept his painting on his wall for 11 years, Silas Kane, who turned 8 pencil sketches into a real building."
She stepped down. The applause went on a long time. After the ceremony, the crowd drifted to the reception in the south garden. Mara went the other way. She found Silas at the far end of the main corridor, standing in front of the long interior wall. The wall held the original oil painting, reframed in museum mounting, lit from above with the soft track lighting curators use. Wren stood beside him. She was 11 now, taller, still carrying her sketchbook. She turned and saw Mara coming. "Miss Mara, I drew you something last week." She opened the sketchbook to the most recent page, a pencil drawing of Silas and Mara standing on the dock at Lake Ellery, looking out at the water. Between them, the small cedar model. She tore the page out carefully and held it up. "It's for you." Mara took the drawing. She put her free hand on Wren's shoulder. And then, for the first time in front of Wren, for the first time in front of anyone, she put her other hand on Silas's on the wooden rail of the corridor. She did not lace her fingers through his, she just rested her palm on the back of his hand. He did not move it. They stood that way for half a minute, the three of them facing the painting. Eli had drawn a house 11 years ago, not knowing who would live inside it. Today, for the first time, that house had been full.